Good morning and welcome to the Tennessee State Funding Board for November 25th, 2024, a reconvening first of the revenue estimating presentation and procedures. Members, I will note, and guests, I will note, since we were here last, we have a long-awaited new microphone system that hopefully works very well. Members, for you at the dais and guests, this won't affect you. Those mics are taken care of. But you can see the button there, push if you want to talk, turn it off when you don't, and we will go from there. So the first thing I will do today is note the presence of a physical quorum, and I will ask Sandy, have we received any requests for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, we have not.
Thank you very much. The first item on our agenda today is consideration and approval of recommendations of state revenue projections. To present on this matter, we have David Thurman, Director of Budget. David, if you will, come on down and you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How's that? Better? Better? How's that? Okay. Great. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, staff have met and are offering the following ranges for taxes for the fall FY25 and 26. For FY25, total taxes, we're recommending a range, a low of negative 1.68% and a high of negative 1.34%. For FY25 general fund taxes, we're recommending a range of negative 2.5 as a low and negative 1.91% as a high. And I will just clarify that these ranges that we're recommending reflect no change to the current estimate that the budget is now enacted. For FY26, we're recommending to you for total taxes a growth range of 1.25% as a low and 2.15% as a high. And for FY26 general fund taxes, we're recommending to you a low of 1% as a low and 2% as a high.
There we go. Thank you very much. Talk more about that. Talk more about how, what the discussion was, how the staff came to these recommended ranges. I think the current year is pretty cut and dried. I mean, again, no changes to the current year that we've seen success with so far, but talk about particularly the out year.
Sure. So what we heard from the presenters generally is that the economy for the general economy is pretty good, that the underlying fundamentals of the economy are pretty good. That said, there are some concerns about slowing growth as we are starting to normalize our revenue trends from economic revenue trends as we work through COVID recovery. Federal dollars are being worked out. We've also seen the shift in spending patterns to reflect a slowing pattern there. Still growth, but just at a much slower growth. You know, we're coming out of a period of accelerated growth to a much slower period projected. So those are kind of the concerns. Also underlying the concern for 26 is the policy changes that have impacted our growth a little bit. And so that was also factored into the economists' thinking as well.
Thank you. And as budget director, and you think about the policy changes that are baked into a budget that you'll be helping to craft now, how do you think about that in relation to these proposed ranges?
Well, I mean, I think we look at it as two separate thought processes. So this is certainly a huge part of our thinking in developing the framework for the next FY26 budget. We're starting to work through the funding request, but really it's two different processes. And so we'll look at it through those different lenses. The slowing growth is not a surprise. We kind of anticipated this as we've crafted the prior budgets. With the booming growth that we've had, we've crafted the last two budgets to use basically recurring money for non-recurring purposes. It allows us to have some cushion as we were concerned about what the economy would look like coming out of the COVID recovery period. We anticipated some slower growth. And so the way we've structured this budget allows us to really endure some slowing growth and still be able to address some of the normal growth of government and a few other things.
Thank you very much. Members, I should have done this first, and that is ask for a motion in a second so we can have questions and discussion. I apologize for getting that out of order. I'll make a motion. We accept the ranges as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. What about further questions or discussion? Commissioner?
Just a quick question. Dave, what do you said this is kind of slower than normal growth. What do you generally think of as normal growth in a typical year, not counting the COVID years we've had?
Well, it kind of depends upon the range as far as how back you look. I think somewhere between 3.5 to 5 would probably be a normal growth range.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further questions or discussion? I will say in making the motion to approve the ranges as presented, I think what we have here is a reasonably conservative revenue estimate that will help us and help the governor and the legislature craft a budget that will meet the needs for the year, while at the same point in time being able to adjust to the revenue adjustments that were made in the budget last year. And I will renew my motion for passage. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the revenue estimates as presented, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. The item is approved. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda today, we have consideration for approval of recommendations in regard to the lottery revenue projections. Always a gamble. Thank you. I will recognize David Thurman again for these projections.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Staff has reviewed the forecast presented to us to the board 2 weeks ago and recommend to you the following ranges for FY25. Growth range of -9% as a low and -6% as a high. And for FY26, a growth range of 0.9% as a low and 1.69% as a high. And then for FY27, 28, and 29, the out year forecast recommending to you a low of 1% as a low for each year and 2% as a high for each year.
Thank you very much. I'll make a motion. We accept the ranges as presented. We have a second. We have a second. With a motion and a second, a little discussion. David, again, as before, talk about what went into the thinking behind these proposed ranges.
So the negative growth ranges for current year and the slower growth for 26 really reflect two things that we heard. One, it's a product of the for 24 there were some large pot of winnings that kind of accelerated or incentivized, I guess I would consider it non-recurring revenue activities in those revenues. And based on the forecast that we heard, that was an unusual event, and that it would take 2 years of normal lottery activities to achieve those levels again. So that's why there's recognition of a slower growth in 25 and 26. It's also a little bit of a product of sports wagering and how that's competing with some of the normal players that participate in the lottery programs. So that's why we were thinking in the short term there would be negative to slower growth, and then the out years kind of reflect some normalization of that growth going forward.
There we go. Members, any further questions or comments regarding the lottery projections? Seeing none, all those in favor of the projections as presented, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. The item is approved. I would like to recognize Senator Watson, Chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, and top-level staff John Kerr there in the room as well. Thank you very much for being here for that important part. Next on the agenda today, we have received notification from the Tennessee Education Lottery Corporation pursuant to TCA 451-111. Members, you have a letter in your packet. I hope you have taken time to review that. Our job here today is to acknowledge receipt of that letter, notifying the board that it has determined that an amount that maximizes the net lottery proceeds to the state of Tennessee Lottery for Education account is projected less than 35% of lottery proceeds for fiscal year 24-25. The amount currently projected by the Tennessee Education Lottery for the fiscal year ranges from $455 million to $475 million. Unless there are any questions or points of discussion, seeing none, we will consider the letter to be acknowledged. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda today, we have a report from the Department of Economic and Community Development for approval of some fast track projects. Today, Jamie Stitt and Jessica Jones are here, and Alan Borden, I see. Come on down, lean into the microphone. You are recognized.
Thank you very much, Chairman Comptroller. My name is Alan Borden. I have the privilege of serving as the Deputy Commissioner for the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. To my right, we have Jamie Stitt, who serves as the Assistant Commissioner of our Department of Economic Development. And then to my left, we have Jessica Johnson, who serves as the Assistant Commissioner of Finance and Administration. Sir, we have 3 projects to bring before the funding board today for your approval. Before we do that, with your permission, sir, I would like to call on Jessica to provide the board with a funding report.
Very good. Jessica, you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. Our previous fast track balance as of our last report was $613.2 million. Our newly deobligated funds are $12.1 million. Our fast track grants greater than $750,000 amounted to $5.6 million. Our fast track grants approved less than $750,000 amounted to $5.3 million. Our fast track administration amount was $238,000, bringing our adjusted fast track balance to $614.1 million. Our total amount of commitments are $441.6 million, leaving our uncommitted fast track amount to $172.5 million for percentage committed of 71.9%. Today's proposed grants amount to $6.8 million, which would bring our uncommitted fast track balance to $165.7 million with a percent committed of 73%.
Thank you, members. Any comments or questions? You all are welcome to continue on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned, sir, we have 3 projects for the board's approval today. Would you like for me to go through all 3 of those, sir?
Yes, thank you. Without objection, we'll consider all 3 at once. Go right ahead on all 3. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So the first project that we are requesting approval is for Denso Manufacturing down in Athens, Tennessee, McMinn County. And Denso has a great relationship and partnership with the state of Tennessee dating back to 1988, in fact, when they first established operations in Maryville. Denso is in one of the top 3 tier 1 automotive manufacturers on the globe. So we're very proud to have them here. They have over 162,000 employees around the globe. And this particular project today is dealing with an 879,000 square foot expansion that's going to bring 200 net new jobs to Athens, Tennessee, with a capital investment of $100 million and an average hourly wage, very good average hourly wage, I might add, of $31.39 per hour. This will put the total employment between Blount County and McMinn County up over 4,000 employees in the state of Tennessee for Denso. We're requesting your approval for a fast-track job training assistance program funds in the amount of $1.8 million. The second company that we have for your approval is also a great company that I'm sure most of you have heard of, and that is True Green Limited Partnership. And True Green, of course, is a company that provides lawn care service across the United States. And we're proud to announce that they're relocating their headquarters to Cool Springs down in Franklin, Tennessee. And this is going to create 135 net new jobs. It's going to be about a $5.673 million capital investment. And the 135 net new jobs will have an average hourly wage of $72.39. So HQ Jobs is a sector that we have been focusing on at ECD. We're going to continue to, mainly for a couple of different reasons. Number one, the quality of the jobs that these HQs bring to our state. And number two, HQs, as you know, this is where the decisions get made for everything else. So we're real excited about this particular project. The third project is another great company, a global company, Schneider Electric USA, part of the Schneider International Global Network, a great French company that has really seen unprecedented growth in the last decade around the energy sector. They're going to be creating 400 net new jobs with this particular project. It's going to be going down in Wilson County. Now, their headquarters for the USA is already in Franklin, which we're very proud to have, and they continue to grow. It's going to be an $85 million capital investment down in Wilson County, and these jobs have an average hourly wage of $26.63. We're requesting Fast Track Economic Development Grant funds for your approval today in the amount of $4 million. And those are the three projects that I have for your approval, sir.
Thank you very much for the description. I'll make a motion that we approve the projects. Do we have a second? We have a second. Quick question in regard to the True Green project. I note that Franklin's gain might be Memphis's loss. Talk about that and how you justify the offset there.
Yes, sir. That's a great question, Mr. Comptroller. Actually, technically, their headquarters is in Memphis. However, their jobs are really spread out. Those HQ jobs are spread out around the U.S. This is a consolidation of those HQ jobs. And as with any project that we provide incentives to, these must be net new jobs to the state of Tennessee. We never, ever provide incentives for any project that is simply moving jobs from one county in our great state to another county in our great state, as we feel that's obviously counterproductive. So these are net new jobs to the state of Tennessee, sir.
So would it be fair to say your impression is that some number of persons in Memphis would be offered an opportunity to continue having a job by relocating maybe to Middle Tennessee, or as with persons from around the nation, who might be part of this company have an opportunity to move in?
That's a great question. I'm going to let Ms. Stitt
Yeah.
take that, sir.
Jamie Stitt, Assistant Commissioner of Business and Workforce Development. That is a very good question, as Alan mentioned, one that we had asked as well when we performed our due diligence. It is our understanding that there is one C-suite team member that is located in Memphis today. A lot of the C-suite team members are located in Dallas and Florida and other locations. They're working remote, and True Green really wants to pull everybody into the office and one centralized location. So they want to keep Memphis as a support system, and they want to move in closer proximity to the state capitol and move their headquarters to Franklin. Does that make sense? So we're only one person from our understanding, and what we've been told is going to be moving from Memphis to Franklin. Everybody else is coming from out of state.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Members, what about any further comments or questions? Mr. Secretary?
Thank you, Comptroller. Great questions. So I'm a little puzzled. I think I understand, but I just want to make sure that I really do understand. It sounds to me almost like a headquarters in Memphis in name only.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? So they've only got one C-suite person who's located in Memphis right now.
That's what we have been told.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor of the items presented being approved, respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. The items are approved. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Back to it. I'm sorry. Let me rewind that. And while the items have been approved, for the record, I do want to ask, in regard to these projects that were presented today, have the companies that signed the incentive acceptance forms, do they understand their obligations under those agreements?
Yes, sir, they do.
And have the checklist been completed for every project?
Yes, sir, they have.
And do all the projects that we considered today include accountability agreements which provide protections to the state in the event that these entities can't fulfill their end of the deal?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Yes, very good. I'm sorry, members, to come back after the fact and ask that, but in that those have been satisfactorily completed, I feel good about our actions. Any other questions or discussion? So again, the items were approved. Thank you all for being here today. Next up, we have a report from the Tennessee Central Economic Authority. Charlie Lyons and Kelsey Givens, I believe, are here today. Come on down, and you are recognized for your presentation.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board members. Yes, I'm Charlie Lyons, President CEO of Tennessee Central Economic Authority, and this is Kelsey Givens. I would like to just remind you, we are an EDO. We work very closely with the ECD department that you just met with, and we cover a 5-county area. It is the Sumner County and Wilson County, Trousdale, Macon, and Smith. Our focus is on the 3 rural counties, as there are several EDOs in the others. Unusual for an EDO, but we do have property, the PowerCom Industrial Center, and we're excited to at least mention to you, and I know it's not a financial situation, but we have put in a lot of resources, and we have a port that will be opening up in 2025 to serve the Upper Cumberland area. So it will allow another gateway for commodities, primarily in and out. And so we're very excited about that. Just wanted to share that with you. You have our financials in front of you. I believe in our review, everything is very standard and within the percentages, but we are very welcome any questions or thoughts or comments.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here as usual. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you all. This is a report item. No action is necessary. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, we have a report from the Tennessee State Veterans Home Board. Ed Harris and Adam Fleming, I believe, are here today. Come on down, and you are recognized.
Morning. We're going to start off with Adam Fleming, who's our CFO, to go over the financials for you.
Morning, gentlemen. Mr. Commissioner, let me speak into the mic here. You should have received a briefing on the report of our financial status of the Tennessee State Veterans Home Board in your packet. Along with you. Page 1 provides a summary of the financial operations as of October 31st, 2024. As you see, the actual year-to-date loss is just shy of $1.1 million across the enterprise. We budgeted for a profit of around $368,000 year-to-date. This loss is primarily due to agency nurses being in 3 of our 5 facilities currently, which we're working diligently to remove from said facilities. 4 of the homes do exceed the state occupancy rate of 71.1% as listed on the bottom of page 1. Pull this closer. The Cleveland facility is still ramping up. We are in the process of opening another home within the facility as we phase it into existence. Page 3 of 5 lists our current construction projects. 35% of the 3 renovation projects listed for the homes will be funded from our repair and replacement funds, which is at about $2.5 million. The funds in this account are restricted for maintenance and repairs and replacement of end-of-life cycle equipment and per the State Funding Board management agreement. Page 3 and 4 is an overview of our audits, state internal audit and performance audit. Our management remains committed to reduce costs, increase performance, increase internal controls, and continuously provide fiscal responsibility of our facilities. From here, we go to regulatory compliance, which Mr. Harris will cover.
All right, moving forward, CMS star ratings. Currently, Murfreesboro has a 1 star. It's due to a survey, complaint survey that they had back in May, and I can discuss that in a little bit. Humboldt is at 4 stars. I expect them to gain their 5th star soon. We're waiting for a survey to come through there. Knoxville is 5 stars. They've had 2, their survey was in March and came through real well and retains their 5-star rating for, I'm thinking 5 years now. Clarksville is a 3-star related to a survey they had back in 2019. Cleveland, of course, doesn't have a star because there's no data to generate star ratings. Now, looking at that regulatory oversight, Murfreesboro had their last annual survey in August of 2019. So they still carry the 7 clinical deficiencies that they had from back in 2019. Those add up into points and that affects the star rating. That is one component, not the biggest though. VA survey came in June of 2024. They had 1 minor deficiency there. And we had a complaint survey that came in May of 2024, and there were 5 severe deficiencies with that. They pretty much brought that building down to a 1 star. All of those deficiencies that affected that star rating are under appeal right now, and we're hoping to get those resolved soon. We're contesting the validity of the citations. Moving on to Humboldt. They had their annual survey in October of 2023. They had 2 minor deficiencies there. Their VA survey came in February. They were deficiency-free. Knoxville annual survey was in February of 2024. Then they had a VA survey that came in a week later. The annual survey had 2 deficiencies. The VA survey was deficiency-free. CMS case mix audit was also completed, and they came out well on that. They're below the state threshold with no action taken. Clarksville, they had their annual survey in April of 2022. 2 deficiencies there, one of which has brought them down to that 3-star level. The VA survey came in 2023, September, and they're looking at, they had 3 deficiencies there. We're waiting for their next survey. They should be in soon. Cleveland has passed everything it needed to pass to begin operation. They passed their licensure survey last fall. The CMS certification survey was in February 2024, of course, deficiency-free, and the recognition survey was in March of 2024, and that was deficiency-free as well. The average number of health citations in the United States is 9.6, and the average number of health citations in Tennessee is 6.2. One of the things not included in your report is I want to go over the community accolades. Congratulations to the Comptroller's Office for the best place to work. Saw the sign when I came in. Our Murfreesboro building won in 2024 Best Nursing Home for Rutherford County under the Main Street Awards. They were the 2024 winner for Best Nursing Home and finalists in Senior Home Services jointly with our Clarksville building for Middle Tennessee. Local IQ 2023, they're a winner of the Best Place to Work. 2024, we got nudged out by somebody. Maybe it might have been the Comptroller's Office. But we were in the top 5 of Best Place to Work, and they also won the 2024 winner of the Best Nursing Home. So the community is looking very favorably towards the building for the past 2 years. Moving to Humboldt, 2024, they won Best Nursing Home in the Milan Mirror Best of the Best. Clarksville, 2024 winner for Best Senior Respite Care, 2024 winner for Best Nursing Home Rehabilitation Care, 2024 Best Nursing Home and finalist for Senior Home Services jointly with Murfreesboro for the for Middle Tennessee. And most of those were repeats from 2023. Clarksville also got the 2024 Silver Winner Award for Assisted Living and Nursing Homes from Clarksville's Best. Knoxville, 2024 winner of Best Nursing Home, 2024 finalist for Best Place to Work. They also in 2023 won Best Nursing Home. Cleveland is, although they're brand new, they got runner-up for Best Nursing Home, and as they get a little experience under them, I think they'll get better, but they're still growing. Moving on to percent of occupancy, the buildings are performing very well. Comparatively, Murfreesboro is currently at 112 residents out of 140. Total beds. However, we have 20 beds that we have taken out of use due to staffing issues. So with that being at 112 is 80% capacity with 140 beds, but if you adjust that to what they have operating, they're at 93% capacity. Humboldt is at 126. That puts them at 90% capacity. Knoxville is at 131, which is at 93.5% capacity. Clarksville is at 104 with 94% capacity. And Cleveland is currently at 71, which is 66% of their 108 beds. However, we only have 4 houses open. So in reality, they are 99% full. Looking at how that compares to the rest of the state, And I think Adam had mentioned the state average for occupancy is 71.1 for nursing homes across the state. Our Nashville market average census is 76.6%. The two buildings in that market, both Murfreesboro and Clarksville, exceed that, and especially with the adjusted number for Murfreesboro, which puts them at 93% capacity. The Chattanooga market, which affects our Cleveland building, it is at 67.1, and Cleveland currently, as I said, was 66%. So they're right there. However, again, the entire building isn't open. So they're actually at 99% of beds available. Jackson, 63.5%. Our Humboldt building's currently sitting at 90%. Knoxville market is at 68.4%. And they're currently, Knoxville building is sitting at 93.5%. So you can see across the state, we're exceeding the state norms for occupancy. And these occupancy levels that have come up are going to definitely positively impact our revenue. I briefly want to talk about our staffing because it is a critical issue with the contract staffing being in 3 homes, although we are within this close of getting it out of Clarksville. We're working very hard to get the agency out because it is a financial drain on the organization, and there is an inherent drop in quality in the buildings that have agency. There's a lot of reasons for that. I won't go in now, but our Murfreesboro building has just hired 11 CNAs, which will be starting orientation over the next 2 weeks. Once they come on board, they will replace 11 agency nurses and bring their number down. That's not going to be the end of the day here, but it's a huge chunk of that dollar figure. We have put several incentive programs in place to bring in staff. Last year, we had put in a mentoring program and also a retention program, but they didn't pay off like we thought they would, and our budget reflects that. This year, when was that? Just last month, correct? We just added another incentive to it where we can do a $1,000 recruitment bonus. If one employee brings another employee in, they stay 6 months, they can get $1,000 for that. So we are trying everything we can to get this agency out as quick as we can. On a side note, with those grants or bonuses we talked about, we are leveraging a 50% grant from the VA to pay for those. And we have our current application has been in. I don't foresee any reason why it would be denied this year when it was denied in the past or approved in the past. Our PPD, which is hours per patient day, still stays above the norm. The average PPD for clinical hours per patient day for Tennessee is 3.75. This past week, Murfreesboro is 4.0, Humboldt 4.3, Knoxville 4.4, Clarksville was at 5.5, and as we've talked about in years previous, Clarksville's design causes them to be staffed at a much higher level. Cleveland is at 4.6, and I think that is coming down this week again. And as you remember, the 12-bed scenario in Cleveland, which causes it to be a much more expensive building, in Cleveland, we fixed that, went to 18-bed houses there, which makes them definitely more feasible. So our staffing levels are higher than the norm, but that's also one of the reasons we have such high ratings in the community and good care. And that concludes my report, unless there's questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here today. I will ask members for questions. Commissioner?
Thank you, and congratulations on your places to work and other metrics that you're hitting. That's commendable. I just have some questions kind of about your finances, and I think Thad Del Conte has brought some of these up with you, but I'd just kind of like to get some thoughts. So am I reading this right, that your reserves are about 7.6 million, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And am I understanding it correctly that in the first 4 months, you've lost 1.1 million.
Yes, sir. That's
Does that
correct.
put you on a trajectory to lose 3.3 this year?
I believe once we continue to improve census and continue hiring and eliminating the agency nurses, that should put us at least break even for the fiscal year.
Okay, because I think you said your budget was a positive 350, right?
Yes, sir.
And so what you hope to get to now is break even, and most of that is census and contract nurses?
The expense lines is definitely driven by the agency nurses. And yes, as Mr. Harry's mentioned, we've hired 11 and then we hired close to the similar amount in the prior month as well. So we're on a good trajectory, and with the new programs of some employee engagement.
We've also had some unforeseen maintenance issues. Would you like to go over those?
Yes, sir. We did have a few anomalies within. We had to replace a $28,000 called the grease traps, and just some landscaping from neglect, and air conditioning repairs in our Clarksville facility continues to be a challenge. It's at least $100,000 over the quarter, if not maybe 150. That's the primary drivers of some of the unforeseen maintenance of the four facilities, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my concern is you've got about a 2-year runway here on the burn rate that you're at today, maybe. And I'm also concerned. I haven't looked at all your detailed financials, but I'm also a little bit concerned about the fact that you've got some more beds coming online, which means you'll need more staffing, and you've got the contract nurses. You can't get enough staffing already, and the contract nurses seem to be your biggest problem as far as it's throwing you out of your budget. So I guess a couple of concerns. One is, as you keep adding beds, how do you keep up with staffing? And the second concern is, this seems like an awful lot of money that you're losing, almost $700,000 in 4 months in Murfreesboro. So the question that comes to my mind is that all contract nursing issues, because it's got a relatively high occupancy. But my question is is that more issues that need to be addressed than just contract nurses?
Murfreesboro in particular is our leader of agency use, and for every dollar of agency we can eliminate, it's going to save us about 33% of that dollar just on a standard employee per se. So yeah, Murfreesboro averages probably $300,000 to $400,000 a month. This so far in the fiscal year, we are seeing a slight decline, but it kind of ebbs and flows with holidays and vacations and the like. And as page 1 reflects, Knox County has a slight usage of agency, and Clarksville is almost eliminated. Okay. So most of the bed potential is in Cleveland, and kind of like I alluded to earlier, once we open a house, we have to just put a few CNAs, the other nurses in there. And Cleveland is just now at the stage where they are profitable to a degree, where we open a house, we fully staff it, and then once we have to get the residents in there, then it becomes profitable as standard.
We won't be able to go through all this today, so let me just ask this. Would you all, it sounds like you already have this done, so if you just shoot it over to me, you have a pro forma for the rest of the year, if you were able to, kind of how you're expecting to address these contract nursing particularly, or what your revenues and all look like. Could you just shoot that over to me so I get a look at it? I'm also on the board, so I also want to be able to see it.
Certainly.
You could shoot me over that pro forma for this year, and if you have one, kind of what it looks like for the next fiscal year and where you think you're going, that'd be really helpful.
Yes, Mr. Bryson, we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing.
If I can, just go ahead and shoot it to all of us.
Okay.
Yes, go right ahead.
You were concerned about opening beds and how to do in relation to contract nursing. We're opening the beds in Cleveland, which doesn't use contract nursing in that market. So those are direct employees that are coming on. Currently, we're at 71 residents, which is 4 houses full. We expect to open the 5th house, I was told tentatively December 3rd. So Once we get House 5 done, we'll of course move to 6 and we'll have a full building. And again, the Cleveland building itself is set to the point where it'll be staffed like the other buildings, not like Clarksville. So it should generate a profit.
Great. And that'll help to support the other
Correct.
facilities.
And
Great.
unfortunately, they have been a drain,
Mhm.
you know, as we're in the startup, which we're
Yeah.
going to be dealing with.
Great. If you'll send me those financials, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Members, Mr. Treasurer.
I just want to second what the commissioner said there. I was concerned about the run rate, looking as he did at your losses and everything, but you've answered that with him and all. I just want to note too that on the third or so page of your presentation, you note the complaints and the infractions you've been noted for here. The Murfreesboro facility, you noted in here that the fourth infraction involved a medication error rate exceeding 5%, and that the fifth one was for an expired medication and improper storage. And then it goes on to talk about an immediate jeopardy citation, 5 of those. So those are, in my book, those are not minor things. I've had experience in the healthcare industry, and this is, an issue. So, I mean, what's the situation with your nursing leadership there in the facility and all that?
Our Murfreesboro building, the DON, is fairly new. We're currently looking for another administrator. We're in the hiring process at this point. So the leadership in that building is weak. However, we've supplemented it with my staff. My clinical director's in there and her team. And we also have our Warren Jasper, who's our general counsel and also a nursing home administrator, is the acting administrator in that building. So we have put that in place. We hope to hire somebody pretty soon. The medication errors that are there, when we say they're not significant, it usually means there's been no outcome or anything. One of the errors involved a contract nurse who was under survey. She was passing pills, and one of the things you're not allowed to do is pre-package them in cups in line. You got to do them one time for each resident. Well, she started doing that right in front of the surveyor, which is not our procedure or policy, but got cited for that, and then went to dispose of some drugs and did that improperly. So it was not resident related or care related, if that's what it is. But nobody's not gotten their medications. Nobody's had any bad outcomes due to that.
Yep. Doesn't keep them from writing you up, though. is that right?
Correct. Yeah, and rightly so. We were wrong.
And I think as I said, it's indicative of your nursing leadership, and also, retraining is necessary for your people. So,
One of the issues we have with staff agency, and I had mentioned that in my report, is there's an inherent drop in quality.
Yeah.
The quality issues that we've been dealing with are directly related to agency staffing, staff members.
Right.
And so that's again why it's one of our huge goals to get them out of the building. And it's not that they're bad people. They just don't know our residents. They don't know our processes. They come in for one day and then they leave. And then next day you get a whole different one.
Well, in that regard, have y'all established a pipeline with a producer of CNAs or, other nursing personnel that you're working with to try to establish
Yes, actually we have. And as you can see, our most challenged buildings are in Middle Tennessee. And part of our problem, I think we talked about this last year, is the amount of competition out there, not in the nursing home environment, but my staff were just joking in the back that they're going to apply to True Green. But from they heard those hourly rates. But my CNAs can look at Amazon recruiting and go to work for Amazon and get paid more than we do. For a while there, if they went to Burger King or McDonald's, they could get paid better than we do. And we did some wage increases to accommodate. And then it's just an ongoing battle. The labor pool of frontline workers seems to be exhausted in the Middle Tennessee area. So the CNAs are always being competed to go to other nursing homes, also going into agency, being contracted by the agency, or going to some industry outside of nursing.
Okay. And I'll just note in closing, you got the Clarksville survey in April 2022 that involved a resident fall.
Yes.
CMS, as you know, regards those extremely seriously.
Yes, and we did.
Resident falls.
I don't want to go into detail on that in the meeting, but that was an agency staff member who did something improperly, incorrectly, and we pressed that to the furthest level we could press that. But since it happened in our building, it was our citation.
Sure. Okay. Okay, Comptroller.
May I, Comptroller?
Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Mr. Harris, I'm going to ask kind of a different question, and I know just not to be dangerous. So, but I had someone confront me this past week with a question. I don't know the answer to it, but they were talking about end-of-life care for veterans. Is there a difference between what the end-of-life care services that your facility provides versus perhaps what others might provide?
I'd like to say we do it better. We have our own internal palliative care program, but we also contract with hospices, and they come in and manage their residents in our facilities. So,
okay. Well, the question was asked of me. I was kind of surprised by it. They certainly had the feeling that what we provide in the veterans' homes would be up to a lower standard than what other places provide. But you're telling me you don't believe that's the case.
I'm trying to determine when you say standard, what you're saying. If we
Well, when I say standard, perhaps what I might even use the word expectations instead of standard. I mean,
the care level we do is the same as any other skilled nursing facility out there. I think, trying to think at the case we had that hit my desk too, and it's probably the same one where you get approached by, but there are cases that are too complex for us to handle. Especially in our Cleveland building, let's say, because I've got brand new staff and they don't have the complexity or they have the skill set, or they're not gelled as a team enough to handle a very complex case. Also, anybody that has any kind of behaviors, we can't take those. Anybody that's a danger to themselves or to others, and we can't guarantee that safety, we have to turn them down. And I know there are notes that are sent out on that to legislators. I get them first on my desk, and we're responding to those on a somewhat regular basis. But we can only take care of skilled nursing level residents.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions or comments, we appreciate you all being here today. I would reiterate that it is very important. I'm sure you recognize this to do what it takes to pull yourselves into the black in regard to the finances, and that could include making decisions about the degree of services you're able to offer. And so I hope not, but it certainly beats falling into the red without reserves. So thank you for being here today. We consider the report accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda today, we have a report on the State Pooled Investment Fund, better known as the SPIF. Come on down. And you all are recognized. Introduce yourself for the record. And you're recognized.
Good morning, Michael Brakebill, Chief Investment Officer, TCRS.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Marcus Clark. I'm the current Fixed Income Director.
Right. And on my sheet was Mary Collins. Mary's not with us today. You're welcome to stay back there or come on down, either one. But either way, Marcus, do you want to start? You're recognized.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm here to present the annual report to you. As in prior years, I'll go over the general characteristics of the fund. I'll talk about some interesting or noteworthy. Lean in. Okay, sorry. I'll talk about some noteworthy changes like year over year. And I will begin with some introductory remarks about the economy and any changes in Fed policy. And then I'll get into the specifics of the SPIF. And in prior years, I then also talked about a second fund, the ITIF, the Intermediate Term Investment Fund, but that fund was liquidated right before the beginning of the last fiscal year. So I really have nothing to report on in that case. But to begin with, some remarks on Fed policy and the economy in general. So the Fed ended its fastest rate hike cycle in over 40 years in July of last year, and it brought the Fed funds rate to 5.5%, which is the highest interest rate pretty much since right before the GFC. The rate actually was even higher than back then, 25 basis points higher. And the Fed kept the interest rate there at that high level for the remainder of the fiscal year. It then started cutting just last September with 150 basis point cut. And then it followed up right after the election with another 25 basis point cut. So we are now sitting at a target rate of 4.75%. And the Fed was able to cut because of the progress in its fight against inflation. The Fed's preferred inflation measure is the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. We began the fiscal year with a PCE of 4.36%. We ended with 2.63, which is an improvement of around 1.7%. And we are still above the Fed's target of 2%, but we are definitely quite a bit closer to it. What was surprising, I think, to most market participants was just the strength of the economy in general. GDP growth came in even higher than in the prior fiscal year, despite interest rates being at an elevated level. The average GDP growth rate was 3%, and the prior year was 2.8%. I wanted to mention, though, that GDP growth has been goosed to some degree by a very high level of fiscal spending, primarily directed at infrastructure and green energy investments. Also, the private sector has funneled a lot of investments towards AI, the AI sector, buying graphics cards and building data centers. And it is surprising what the impact is on GDP growth of these couple of areas that I mentioned. And despite the high growth, we have seen unemployment start to move up. We began the year at 3.6% and we ended at 4.1%. It is difficult at this point to ascertain the impact of the most recent election on the economy going forward. There are worries in the market about President-elect Trump's policies and its impact on inflation. And we have seen the yield curve react significantly, pricing in an uptick in inflation, pushing the long end of the yield curve higher, despite the Fed starting to cut rates in the front end. So we just have to wait to see more details on that. But to get into the specifics of the SPIF, obviously the high rates really help with returns. And if you look at page 5, you can see the returns for the SPIF. For the fiscal year, we're looking net of fees at a return of 5.45%. Which is over 170 basis points higher than in the prior year, and it's the highest return we've had in over 15 years. Our benchmark, the 30-day Treasury bill benchmark, came in at 5.51%. So very attractive returns. Let's look at the size of the SPIF. In prior years, that's on page 4. In prior years, we've seen very strong inflows of about almost 20% each year of the past 2 years. And you can see if you look at page 4, that if you compare the average monthly size in fiscal year 23 to the average monthly size in fiscal year 24, you saw another strong year with growth of about 17% from 30 billion to 35 billion. However, that is the average monthly size. If you compare just end of fiscal year to end of fiscal year, then you see that growth has definitely started to plateau, and we're only up about 4%. And you can see as the size of this big flat line here a little bit. If you want to see where the growth is coming from, you can disaggregate the SPIF into 3 components: the general fund, the LGIP, and other state funds. The general fund has been largely going sideways at around 20.5 billion. The LGIP saw an inflow of about 1.3 billion. So that's where the majority of the increase year over year came from. And then if you look at the chart, you can also see that the other state funds, which are restricted funds, they are right now elevated due to the presence of the stimulus funds that are allocated towards specific usages, but they're still in the fund. They will be coming out of the fund over the next 2 years. If we look at the positioning of the SPIF, we can look at page 3. And you can see that our allocation towards the two safest sectors, treasuries and agencies, have moved up by about 2%. We are now sitting at 89%. That came at the expense of commercial paper, which is now down to right around 4%. Commercial paper is, we find commercial paper not very attractive. The spreads are extremely tight. Issuance is very low among the list, on our approved list of names. And when they do want to issue, they want to go further out into 6 or 12-month space where we don't find value in that space. So that's why the allocation towards commercial paper is lower than in the past. What has ticked up a little bit is the allocation towards certificates of deposit issued towards local banks. At the end of the prior fiscal year, we were at 1.7%, and now we're at around 2%. So that just ticked up a little bit. Looking at the duration of the fund, we can look at page 6 and 7, the weighted average maturity and the weighted average life. So we have 2 different duration measures, primarily to capture one type of investment that can be quirky. And these are floating rate bonds, because there's a disconnect for floaters between the duration and the maturity. Usually you have some kind of relationship. But with floaters, you can have very long bonds with a very short duration, and those 2 measures try to capture the differences. Right now, we don't have any floaters in the portfolio, so the weighted average maturity and weighted average life measures show the same graph. And you can see we have been spending all year between 38 days and 51 days. This is roughly comparable to the prior year. The average weighted average maturity has been around 45 days, which is just 1 day shorter than in the prior fiscal year. And then last but not least, we can take a look at liquidity measures in pages 8 and 9, which is the average daily liquidity on page 8 and the average weekly liquidity on page 9. And if you look at the graph on page 8, that shows the average daily liquidity, you can see quite a lot of volatility. We started the year at around 60%. The daily liquidity then dropped to the mid-20s and then rose again towards 50% area. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talk about what explains these swings, because it isn't that we wave in highly illiquid paper. This chart essentially just shows our trade-off between treasuries and agencies, because all treasuries are considered daily liquidity. Even if you bought a 1-year treasury bill, GASB 79, the standard that we use to account for it, treats it as a daily liquidity. And as soon as you buy any kind of agency bond, even if it's just a 1-week bond, it's no longer daily liquidity. It falls into a different bucket. So this volatility just reflects our choice between treasuries and agencies. So depending on if agency paper is attractive, then we buy more agency paper. And if treasuries are more attractive, then we buy more treasuries. But you can see we've been comfortably above our minimum required level in terms of daily liquidity. We need to have a minimum of 10%. And at no point in time were we less than 150% above that level. And similar to for weekly liquidity, we need to have 30% minimum. And at no point were we less than 100% above the required minimum there. And that concludes my presentation for the SPIF. To recap, it has been a very good year returns-wise. I think we've improved liquidity, or we have very high levels of liquidity, very high levels of safety. We don't really know where the journey with interest rates is going to take us next year. But where we stand right now, the market is expecting 3 cuts over until the end of the next calendar year. So we expect rates to stay attractively high for the SPIF. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
Certainly, what you have described here is exceptional, and I know takes diligent work on a daily basis, and it's very much appreciated. And really, the legislature and the people of Tennessee should appreciate, and if they knew about it to the degree that we do, the work that you do. What about further questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Treasurer, it looks like a job well done by these folks in the Department of Treasury, and we appreciate that. We appreciate you all being here today. Mary, great job back there. Thank you very much. The report is accepted.
Thank you.
No further items of business on the agenda. Members, you're welcome to take the material and contents of the book, but we would appreciate you leaving the binder here on the table. Unless there's any other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Properly seconded, non-debatable. All those in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.